Chapter 8. Mother's Milk. Amelia hadn't slept in 3 days. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. Sure, she closed her eyes sometimes, drifted off for a minute here, a handful of seconds there. But her body never forgot the baby, not for a goddamn second. Even in the haze, it knew. She needs you. She's hungry. You're failing. The house was clean in the way that hid a quiet rot, disinfectant over sour milk, folded burp cloths with pink embroidery, counters wiped to a shine that still couldn't shake the smell of sweat and curdled formula. The baby swing sat like an unused altar in the corner of the living room, draped in soft toys, motionless. Mark meant well. He always meant well. And God, that was maybe the worst part. He stood in the kitchen most nights, backlit by the fridge, rattling off things he'd seen on his phone. Some moms swear by nipple shields. Maybe it's your diet? Have you tried YouTube? As if YouTube had answers. As if you could learn how to be enough from a woman named Mama Trish, 1991. She didn't yell at him, though. That took energy. And anyway, she figured some part of him thought this was temporary, that Amelia was a phase, like the screaming, like the hormones, like the blood, and his wife would come back when the baby settled. As if this wasn't her now. A woman with purple crescents under her eyes, breasts hot and aching, weeping little pearls of failure onto a nursing pad at 3:12 in the morning. Rosie was a good baby. Everyone said that. So calm, the nurses had whispered in the hospital with that almost jealous tone, like the baby had a secret. But Rosie wouldn't latch. She'd root. Sure, turn her head, mouth open, snuffling at Amelia's chest like a little pink hound dog. But once she found the nipple, she'd scream. Every time. A high, wet, offended scream, as if what Amelia had to offer wasn't just wrong, it was insulting. The pediatrician said it was common. Happens more than you'd think. Try a consultant. So she did. The card came from a neighbor, just a name, no number, no website. Miss Greaves. You'll have to write her, the neighbor said almost shyly. She's old school, but she helped me. Amelia hesitated, then wrote. And a week later, she didn't knock. Amelia had just sat down, when the front door creaked open like it had been waiting for the wind to make up its mind. The baby was asleep in the sling across her chest, little rosebud lips puckered around nothing. Amelia froze on the couch, the baby's body warm against her, milk damp and spreading across the left side of her shirt like a lazy stain. The woman who entered was not what Amelia expected. She didn't carry a bag, no clipboard, no lanyard or ID tag dangling from a retractable clip. Instead, she wore a wool coat the color of wet ashes and a hat that looked like something from a black and white photograph. Her gloves were pale, like the skin of peeled apples, and she smiled, wide and flat. Amelia Beck, yes? Her voice was milk-thin, kind, almost, but brittle at the edges. Yes, but how did you— Oh, I don't like phones, too noisy. I read your letter. She produced it from inside her coat like a magician with a rabbit. Still sealed, but the envelope was damp now. The ink had bled in places, like veins. I didn't give you my address. Miss Greaves just smiled wider. Doesn't matter. The need calls louder than any map. Amelia didn't like that. Not at all. But she was tired and leaking, and Rosie had only managed a few ounces from the bottle that day before vomiting it back up in a slow, sour stream down Amelia's forearm. The pediatrician's office was closed. Mark was at work. Her body was a haunted house with too many rooms, and Rosie was screaming in every one of them. She stepped aside. Thank you, dear, Miss Greaves said, and entered like a draft. She moved slowly but with purpose, coat rustling like feathers. She smelled, oh God, she smelled like old sheets and breast milk turned thick in the heat. And something floral underneath, but wrong. Not roses or lavender or jasmine. Something dead, still clinging to its bloom. I won't need much, she said, already slipping out of her coat, her gloves. Her hands were veiny and soft-looking, like pudding left out too long. Just you and the child. She led Amelia to the bedroom like she owned it. No pump, no tube, no sterilized tools. She laid Amelia back on the bed, unfastened the nursing bra with practiced fingers, and placed warm compresses, heavy, herbal-smelling things on each breast. Let down is part physical, part spiritual, she said gently, rubbing the compresses in little circles. There are channels in you that need opening, not just ducts. Amelia closed her eyes. The heat soaked deep. She felt herself unclench. Her body, for once, softened instead of bracing. She didn't even flinch when Miss Greaves whispered something, 3 short syllables, into her left breast, close enough that her breath warmed the areola. When she looked down, there were twigs being rubbed into her skin, thin and sharp, soaked in something black. Greaves crushed them in her palm and smeared the pulp over Amelia's chest like a balm. "This will sting." It didn't. Not exactly. It tingled, like static or old carbonation. Rosie stirred in her sling, sensing the change. Greaves plucked her up gently, with reverence, and laid her across Amelia's chest. She didn't offer advice, no talk of proper positioning, no pillows or side angles or football holds. She simply guided Rosie's mouth, slow and sure, and then she latched. For the first time, no screaming, no flinching, just a quiet, greedy suck. Amelia gasped. Her back arched slightly. It was too much, not pain, pleasure, but not the kind she knew. This wasn't sex, wasn't love. This was release in its oldest form. Something ancient and slick and bottomless opened in her. Rosie fed and fed. Miss Greaves hummed softly, a lullaby in a language Amelia didn't know, but recognized. From where? She didn't know. A dream? A story her grandmother told once? A warning carved into the bones of women? The baby's eyes fluttered, then locked onto hers. And that was when Amelia knew something was wrong. Rosie didn't look content or sleepy. She looked aware. Her eyes, so pale a blue they were almost white, watched Amelia as she drank. Not the way babies watch. Not dumb and sweet and reflexive. No, this was calculating, curious. She blinked, and in that blink Amelia saw too much. Saw a room with no windows. Saw thousands of mouths opening on the walls. Saw herself in the center, arms pinned, milk flowing in great ropes from her chest and legs, and something in the darkness lapping it up. Then Rosie burped, a wet, satisfied sound. Miss Greaves smiled. "There now," she said, "the flow has begun." By the second morning, Amelia had to wring out her sheets like laundry left in a thunderstorm. She woke with the pillow slick beneath her cheek, hair plastered to her face. Her nursing bra had given up sometime around 3 a.m., surrendering in a soggy whimper of elastic, and her nightshirt was soaked through from armpit to hem. The mattress beneath her had dark rings, one for each breast, like ink blots. She lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling fan, watching it spin like a hypnotist's coin, and tried not to cry. Crying wasted water. She had so little of that left. Everything else in her was milk. Rosie slept soundly in the bassinet nearby, little chest rising and falling like a hummingbird's. She hadn't cried once in the night. She barely cried anymore. That should have been a blessing, but it wasn't. Not really. Because sometimes in the dead silent dark of 4:45 a.m., Amelia swore she could hear Rosie suckling, even when she wasn't feeding. Just the sound of it, wet, rhythmic, somewhere deep in the house, like someone else was nursing. By day 5, the milk was winning. Her breasts were swollen, not just heavy but hard. Not hot with infection exactly. There was no fever, no red streaks like the internet warned about. But they felt overfull. Not engorged but pressurized. Like if she tripped and hit the corner of a cabinet, she might rupture. She changed nursing pads every hour, wore 2 bras at once, neither of which helped. The fabric soaked through in minutes, leaving faint white crusts that flaked off like dandruff whenever she moved. The house began to stink. Mark noticed first. He came in from work, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, sniffed once, and wrinkled his nose. "Is something sour?" She was in the kitchen, hunched over the sink, squeezing one breast like it owed her money. Milk dripped into a mixing bowl she'd sterilized twice. When she looked up, her eyes were flat and tired. "It's me," she said. Mark blinked. She let the silence hang. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Didn't mean, just surprised, that's all." Later that night, he took his pillow and went to the couch. She found a text on her phone the next morning. "Just too hot in there. Love you." She stared at it a long time. Didn't reply. She tried pumping, tried bottles, tried expressing manually into the shower. But it was never enough. Every time she emptied one breast, the other gushed like a fountain. Once she got smart, duct-taped nursing pads to her chest and laid on towels. When she woke up the next morning, the towels were soaked, the tape had peeled off in the night, and there were flies on the windowsill. She nearly screamed. Mark saw her shaking, wiping the sill with Clorox wipes in furious little circles. "You okay?" She didn't answer. He didn't ask again. Rosie kept growing. Too fast. Way too fast. Her onesies stopped fitting after 3 days. By the end of the week, she looked 6 months old. Not just in size, but in awareness. She tracked things with her eyes now, made sounds that weren't quite coos. Once Amelia caught her staring at a light fixture for 20 minutes straight, gurgling softly, like it was telling her secrets. Amelia brought it up to Mark over dinner. What passed for dinner anyway? Cold pasta and 3 slices of turkey breast she hadn't bothered to heat. Do you think she's, I don't know, advanced? Mark shrugged without looking up. Babies grow in spurts. Yeah, but she laughed today. Babies laugh. She laughed when I cut my finger. Mark said nothing, just chewed, slowly, deliberately, like maybe if he didn't speak, the moment would pass and they could go back to pretending things were okay. The silence between them had turned from awkward to strategic, a defense mechanism. Every word risked too much now, like poking at an infected tooth to see if it still hurt. Spoiler, it always did. She started dreaming about the milk. In the dreams, it came from everywhere, not just her breasts, but her eyes, her mouth, her fingertips, thick and white and unrelenting. She stood in the kitchen calling for help, but her voice was a burble, milk rising in her throat, spilling down her chin. Once, she dreamed she opened the fridge and found bottles, dozens of them, neatly lined up, each labeled not with dates, but with names. One was labeled Mark, another said Greaves, a third, Rosie, had been opened. Something thick and red floated near the top. She didn't open it. She couldn't. One morning she caught Mark staring at a half-full bottle of milk she'd left on the counter. The baby was asleep in the bassinet, gurgling in that new language of hers, and Amelia had stepped into the kitchen to grab more pads. Mark held the bottle in both hands, just looking, turning it slowly like a snow globe, his eyes distant. She watched from the hallway, unseen. He brought the bottle to his lips, paused, sniffed, then put it down. Later, when she asked, he said he was just checking if it had spoiled. Said it looked thick, said nothing about the way he'd licked his lips after. Amelia didn't push. She already knew what it tasted like. It wasn't just the weight, it was the way Rosie grew. She didn't plump up the way babies are supposed to. Round cheeks, squishy thighs, a happy roll of skin at the wrists like a bracelet made of flesh. No, Rosie lengthened, stretched, her limbs too slender for her size, her neck a little too long, head tilting like she was always listening for something far off, something no one else could hear. At 6 weeks old, she sat up on her own. Amelia didn't even register it at first. She was in the bathroom, nursing pads soaked, bra draped over the shower rod like roadkill, trying to clean the curdled mess from her nightgown with a bottle of white vinegar and half a prayer. When she came back into the bedroom, Rosie was sitting in the middle of the bed, no pillows propping her, no rolled blankets behind her spine, just sitting there, upright, steady, watching. Amelia froze in the doorway. Her mouth worked, but no sound came out. A draft shifted the curtains. Rosie blinked, smiled, a knowing smile. That night, Amelia dreamed again. In the dream, Rosie lay beside her in bed, face inches from hers. The baby's breath was sweet and sour and thick with heat. Her lips never moved, but her voice came anyway, soft, high, slithering. Don't stop. You're the source, the vessel. You were chosen. Amelia tried to roll away. Couldn't. Her arms were bound to her sides with pulsing cords of milk-veined flesh, wet and sticky, twitching like worms in a rainstorm. Milk dribbled from her nose and ears, pooled in the hollows of her eyes. Her chest ached, not from pressure, from emptiness. She waits below, Rosie said. Then, with an infant's laugh, her mouth opened too wide, and a long gray tongue slithered across Amelia's breast. She woke with a scream stuck in her throat and her chest glistening with fresh milk, the mattress soaked, her arms sticky. Rosie was asleep in the bassinet, but her tiny hand gripped the edge like she'd been climbing out. Ms. Greaves returned the next day. No knock, no call, no text, just the soft creak of the front door and the sound of her shoes, leather soles on linoleum, dragging just a little, like something old and waterlogged. Amelia was in the kitchen, less milk dripping down her arms. She didn't flinch this time. I was wondering when you'd come back, she said. Greaves smiled and stepped into the light. She hadn't changed. Same coat, same gloves. But the smell was different now, stronger. Milk and herbs and a thick undercurrent of something feral. The scent of an animal cave, maybe, or the underside of a birthing blanket. I felt the shift, she said. She's progressing beautifully. Something's wrong with her. Greaves tilted her head, bird-like. Nothing's wrong. She's becoming, as she was meant to. Amelia swallowed hard. Her throat was raw from sleep screaming. Her breasts ached in strange twitching pulses as if her nerves had been rewired. Why me? Because your body listens. She stepped closer. And because your milk is unusually potent. That word, potent. Like a drug, like a poison, like a sacrament. Greaves reached into her coat and pulled out a small tin box. It was dented, pitted with age. She opened it, revealing a paste the color of blood clots. Dark, wet, sticky. This is for the ritual. Amelia stepped back. Ritual? Greaves didn't answer. Just walked slowly to the living room, sat in the middle of the rug, and patted the floor beside her. Come. Shirt off, chest bared. She's ready for the next phase. Amelia's legs moved on their own, like a puppet tugged on invisible threads. Somewhere in the bassinet, Rosie cooed softly. The salve smelled like scorched sugar and old pennies. Greaves smeared it across Amelia's breasts in slow, deliberate spirals, whispering words that curled and twisted inside her ears. Not English. Not anything human. Each syllable felt like a key, unlocking something deeper in her chest. When Greaves pressed her forehead to Amelia's sternum, it burned. You'll feel the change soon, she murmured. Don't resist. Let it flow. That night, the milk didn't just leak, it sprayed. She woke with a pop in her ears, like pressure releasing, and found the entire room misted with white. The walls glistened. The curtains dripped. The carpet squelched beneath her feet. Rosie was dry, untouched, sleeping with a smile. Amelia stumbled to the bathroom, tore her shirt off, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her breasts were veined with a pale green webbing that pulsed when she breathed. Her nipples were raw and cracked, but not bleeding. No, they leaked something clear now. Not milk. Not exactly. Something thinner, slicker. She reached up to touch it. Her fingers trembled. When she pulled away, the fluid shimmered on her skin like oil in water. And beneath it, she could see something moving, something shifting in the ducts beneath her flesh, squirming. Later, she found Rosie on the floor. She wasn't crawling, not in the normal sense. It was more like slithering, pulling herself forward with unnatural grace, limbs moving too smoothly, too fast. She reached the bedroom door before Amelia could even react, and she turned her head, said something that sounded like, soon. A single word, clear as a bell. The slurping sound wasn't loud, but it was wrong. That's what woke her. That little, wrong sound. Not Rosie crying, not a bottle tipping over, not the creak of the crib mobile shifting in the draft. Just that wet, greedy noise, like someone trying to suck the last drops from the bottom of a smoothie cup. It took Amelia a few seconds to realize the sound was close. Too close. She opened her eyes slowly, like they were glued shut with old honey. Mark was curled beside her in the bed. No, not beside, on her. One arm cradled her like a lover's embrace. His mouth was on her breast. His lips, soft and loose, moved in slow pulses. His eyes were open but orgasmic, rolled back in his head, mainly showing whites, fluttering like he was dreaming hard. Milk dripped from the corner of his mouth, ringed his lips in a sticky white mustache. She lay frozen. Every muscle screamed to move but couldn't. Her mouth opened but no sound came. Then a whisper, "You're the source." Her head snapped to the side. Rosie was awake in her bassinet, sitting up, watching, not crying, not cooing, just watching, eyes wide and bright and aware. When Amelia finally found her scream, Mark jolted upright, coughing, a rivulet of milk trailing down his chin onto his t-shirt. He blinked at her like a man surfacing from a deep pool. What the hell?" he croaked. "You were drinking from me," she yelled, covering herself, sliding off the bed, nearly slipping on the soaked carpet. Mark wiped his face, looked at his hands, and looked at the bed. Jesus, I don't remember. Don't you dare. I swear." He was crying now, or close to it. "I must have been sleepwalking. I've been so tired, and everything's been so weird, I didn't mean to. I wouldn't, I wouldn't." Amelia wanted to believe him. For one tiny microscopic moment, she almost did, until later that day. She came into the kitchen and found him with the fridge open, crouched low, one of the breast milk bottles up to his lips. His eyes were closed. His throat worked in slow swallows. He didn't hear her come in. She stood there, silent, long enough to hear him let out a low moan, like a man sipping the best bourbon of his life. When he opened his eyes and saw her, he didn't flinch. He just said, in a voice thick and husky, "It's like ambrosia." After that, everything leaked. Not just the milk, not just the bed sheets or the towels or her sense of self. Everything. The walls seemed wet now, not visibly, not in a way you could prove, but the wallpaper had started to peel in corners, and when she pressed her hand against it, there was give, a little squish, like the drywall was softening. The milk came in tides now, not a steady stream, but crashing, irregular waves. She'd go an hour with only a few drops soaking her bra. Then, without warning, her shirt would burst wet down the front like someone had cracked a water balloon over her chest. She took to carrying towels everywhere, stuffing them down her shirt, layering puppy pads inside her sweaters, sleeping on the floor where cleanup was easier. It didn't matter. The milk came anyway. The baby monitor started acting up too. Not with Rosie's crying, she'd stopped crying altogether, but with sound. At night, the speaker filled with a low, sticky squelch. Not static, not white noise, a wet, repetitive gurgle, like something feeding, deeply, greedily. She unplugged the monitor, threw it in the garbage. The next night, it turned itself back on. Then came the flood. It was just after midnight. The power had gone out from a storm, the windows rattling, rain needling sideways against the glass like claws. Amelia woke to a familiar pressure, fullness, unbearable and urgent, and that same sound again. But this time it wasn't the monitor. This time it was real. She stumbled out of bed, chest leaking freely, her robe sticking to her skin, and made her way down the hall. The carpet was damp, her bare feet squished as she walked. The door to Rosie's room was ajar. She pushed it open. The crib was floating. Or no, not floating exactly, but bobbing. The mattress had sunk beneath a pool of milk that filled the crib from edge to edge, and Rosie, sweet little Rosie, was lying in it, her tiny body buoyant, arms out, eyes wide, giggling, not drowning, giggling. The milk didn't pour from Amelia's breast now. It flowed from the walls, from the ceiling vent. It trickled down the mobile above the crib and pooled between the crib slats. The room smelled thick, rank. A dairy turned rancid. Amelia screamed, ran forward, scooped Rosie up. The baby was dry, bone dry, not a drop of milk clung to her. She smelled faintly of lavender and iron. Amelia turned to run, and standing in the doorway was Miss Greaves. She was soaked to the waist. Her coat clung to her like molted skin. Her hair hung in wet ropes. Her eyes gleamed in the dark. "I told you," she said softly. "The flow must be honored." Amelia backed away, clutching Rosie. "What is this?" she whispered. "What is she?" Greaves smiled, teeth too white, too sharp. "Not what? Who? She's one of the other kind, born through you, fed by you, the bridge and the vessel both." "That's my daughter." Greaves shook her head. "She's more than that. Some babies are just babies, and some are chosen." The word hung in the air like smoke. Amelia looked down at Rosie. The baby blinked up at her. A milky sheen slid across her eyes. Not tears, membranes. "You're the source," the baby whispered. Amelia screamed again. She didn't sleep that night. How could she? The walls pulsed. The floor felt warm beneath her feet, like something throbbed beneath it. And Rosie didn't cry, just stared, wide-eyed, occasionally giggling. Once she even mimicked Amelia's voice, saying "Mama" in a way that felt rehearsed. Wrong. Mark was gone when she looked for him. His car still in the driveway, his keys by the door. But no Mark. She found the emptied bottles, all of them, licked clean. A single note written in shaky milk-smeared letters lay on the kitchen counter. "I just wanted more. I'm sorry." That night, Amelia wrapped Rosie in blankets, taped breast pads to her chest, layered towels over the bassinet, and locked every door and window in the house. She turned off the lights, sat in the nursery corner, watched, waited. Milk still came. It soaked the towels, leaked from the walls, dripped from her eyes when she blinked too long. And Rosie never slept. She watched her mother and smiled. Amelia stopped eating first. It wasn't a conscious decision, not really. More like a quiet refusal, a silent protest. Her body ached for sleep, but her belly stayed hollow. She chewed ice, drank tap water. Sometimes she licked salt from the edge of a Ritz cracker, then threw the rest away. She hoped hunger would make it stop, but it didn't. The milk came anyway. She bound her chest with dish towels, ace bandages, duct tape over that. Wore a sweatshirt on top, then a jacket. The tape cut into her skin. The bandages left bruises. But even that wasn't enough. One morning, she woke to a bursting sound, like a balloon giving up, and felt something warm and wet trickling down her sides. The milk had pushed through, soaked the layers. It didn't leak anymore. It poured. She tossed the salves down the garbage disposal, burned the herbs in the kitchen sink with a barbecue lighter. The smell was awful, burnt licorice and rot. The smoke curled into a shape she didn't like. It looked like fingers, reaching. She unplugged the fridge, chucked the last of the stored milk down the storm drain out back, watched it swirl into the darkness. Thick, shiny, almost reluctant. The next day the bottles were back in the fridge, neatly arranged, full. She asked Mark if he'd done it. He just looked at her with wet, red eyes, said nothing, just licked his lips. She started hiding the bottles after that. Under the sink, in the dryer, taped inside cereal boxes. Didn't matter. She'd wake in the night and find Mark crouched over her like a supplicant, his mouth at her chest, suckling. Once she slapped him hard enough to split his lip. He didn't flinch, just smiled at her with milk-slick teeth and whispered, "I missed you." Another time, she caught him sucking directly from the nipple of a bottle he'd found in the baby's toy chest. He didn't stop when she walked in, just raised a finger like, "Just a minute." That was the night he disappeared for good. Left the door open, didn't take the car. She never saw him again. Rosie changed too. It was subtle at first. Longer limbs, thinner wrists. She moved like something testing its joints for the first time. Her crawl became a slither, her little arms winding forward like oars in thick water. She stood on her own at 10 weeks, started talking the week after that. "Mommy," she said one morning, "don't dry up." Amelia dropped the spoon she was using to stir her tea. It clattered to the floor. Rosie giggled. "Don't dry up, Mommy," she said again and again, a sing-song mantra. Amelia ran to the bathroom and screamed into a towel until her throat gave out. By the end, the house was mostly milk. The carpet squished with it. The walls blended in thin, oozing lines. The crib was useless. The kitchen floor had gone soft. The bathroom tiles were slick with a thin film that reappeared no matter how many times she scrubbed. She stopped answering the phone, stopped checking the mail. The world outside didn't matter. There was no outside, only this place, this child, this need. She boarded the windows, locked the doors, took the knobs off with a screwdriver and threw them down the garbage chute. Then she turned inward. The knife came first. Not a big one, not a chef's blade, just a paring knife. Small, sharp, intimate. She sat in the tub with her shirt off, the knife in her lap, and stared at her chest. Her breasts looked bruised, veiny, too full. The skin stretched thin. Milk beaded from her nipples, steady and thick. She made the first cut on the underside, a shallow slice. It stung. Blood mixed with milk, turned pink, then white again. The milk didn't stop. It spurted, shot across the bathroom tile, coated the mirror. A high-pressure stream like lancing a cyst. Amelia screamed, pressed the towel to the wound, cried and cursed and rocked, but the milk only came faster. The next night she tried boiling water. She heated a saucepan, pressed the bottom against her chest, teeth clenched. The skin hissed, bubbled, peeled. The pain was electric, pure, righteous. But the milk sizzled through the burn, came anyway, even angrier now. She gave up. For a while, she just lay in bed. Let it happen. Let it flood. Rosie played in the hallway, dragging a plush lamb by one leg. Sometimes she spoke to it in a language Amelia couldn't understand. Sometimes the lamb answered. Once Amelia peeked around the corner and saw Rosie chewing on the lamb's face. Saw its plastic eye blinking. She didn't look again after that. The final night came quiet. No storm, no dreams, just a stillness. Amelia boarded the nursery door, nailed it shut, pushed the changing table in front of it. Then she turned back to her room. She used duct tape this time, a full roll. Around her chest, her back, her mouth. She taped her hands to the bedposts, a final act of surrender. If the milk wanted to win, it would have to take her down completely. She closed her eyes, waited. She woke hours later to the sound of water lapping tile. The house was full. The milk had risen above the baseboards, filled the bathtub, flooded the kitchen. It trickled down the stairs in little white waterfalls. Somewhere, something giggled. She turned her head, barely. Rosie was crawling through the hallway. Not quite human anymore, too long in the arms. Skin pale and glistening like wet linen, eyes glowing faintly like milk glass lanterns in the dark. She laughed, dipped her hand in the milk, brought it to her mouth, sipped. Behind her, the walls pulsed, living, breathing, feeding. On the nursery wall just above the crib, a single line had been scratched into the paint. Not written, scratched, ragged, deep, final. She was chosen to feed us.